So the question you want to ask is, where are you? And the second is, which direction do you need to go? I consider myself a programmer. I've been programming for a few decades now. Started back in the times of programming with C++, mostly in the area of chemical engineering and refineries. Got really excited about programming languages along the way. And today I program in about 15 different languages. What I mean by that is I'm not good at any one of them, but I'm really excited about languages. I spend mostly my time training and consulting and mentoring. I go around the world, work with teams. Predominantly, my role is what I would call as raising the bar of the teams. So I believe strongly in what's called sustainable agile development. So I focus almost entirely on technical practices when it comes to agile development, whether it's automated testing or improving the code quality, focusing on the teams to really work together better at the technical level. So essentially, my role predominantly these days is either training a team to get better at automated testing, or consulting and mentoring with the team to hands-on practice in their projects so that they can move towards something better, and along the way adopting certain technologies as well. I would say I came by agile methods before the time agile methods was actually coined. I remember way back in the late 90s working on software projects for the company that I worked for, and the clients that they supported. And then what I would notice is that the traditional approaches that were, by the book, were rigorous but didn't give the results. And I remember there's one experience that was like a light bulb moment. I had a client that I had to work with, and it was a very critical project and a very time-bound project. And my boss essentially called me and said, "Hey, this project is due on November the 1st. You're going to lead the effort." I said, that's awesome. What can you tell me about this project? And he said, "It's due on November 1st, and you better get it done." And I realized that this is a high risk. And the only way this is going to really succeed is if I constantly collaborate with the customers. And so I called them up and I said, "Hey, can I develop something and send it to you every single week? You start using it and you start giving me feedback on what you really like, but also what you want me to improve, and what should I focus next in delivering this product." We actually delivered it a few weeks ahead of the schedule. And I was honestly a bit shaken because everything by the book I abandoned and went a different route. And this seems to work, but the other things doesn't seem to. And I had that benefit of doubt. Something is going on here, but I don't quite understand. And then eventually, when I came across agile, methods and methodologies, and I'm like, whoa, looks like that's what really caused the results for me. But here are a bunch of people who recognized it, put that into a framework of thought, and gave us a guiding principle to follow. And so that really caught on to it. And then a few years later, as I was thinking through it, that's when I really realized that I could be summarizing these into the book I co-authored with Andy Hunt, which is The Practice of an Agile Developer. But a lot of those were really experienced from the early days on how we could apply it. And it turns out that a lot of these things are, people would say common sense things. Well, as we know, common sense is often not common and not often practiced. And that's kind of the aha moment for me is we could distill this into focusing on success rather than on the process, and then we end up actually getting the results. So that's what's kind of my journey through agile methods is, discovering it by way of practicing, and then turning around to realize that this actually is a sensible way to do if we can focus on and then practice it. And that was my discovery through the journeys of the years. The way I describe my job is I say that I'm the kid in the candy store. Every single day, I wake up with excitement because this is a wonderful experience. Not a lot of people get to enjoy this. We live in this world where we can create abstractions in our mind. We can come up with ideas. We can play that out in front of us on the computers, see it work, cause effect. And what really, when I started programming a few decades ago, I got into programming like a lot of people. Math and science drew me into it. But what really keeps me excited today is the art in it, the excitement in it, the amount of things we can create in terms of value to customers. And several industries don't have this luxury of being able to sit in front of a machine, conceptualize it, create something, and be able to deliver. And so one thing that excites me is that we can create things, and that creative part is amazing. The other thing that excites me is the people part. I can work with developers, around the world, and have them really think through the solutions and challenge themselves in applying these ideas differently and get the results. What's exciting for what we do is there is no one solution to the problems we face. And we need to almost every single time take a problem, think through it, and arrive at a simple solution that can give us the results. And so this is a combination of where you can work closely with both people and technology and the challenges surrounding it, and then be able to cause an impact and deliver results. And I once tweeted saying, life for me is like for a lot of other people like me, is we wake up in the morning absolutely excited and thrilled and thinking that we're going to do all these things, and then going to bed realizing there is so much more to learn and so much more to really get better at, and then repeat the cycle the next day. And it's fantastic to have that very humbling experience where you get to really contribute on a daily basis, and at the same time, realize that there is more to do, more to learn, more to offer, and that's absolutely rewarding. I can't even imagine being in a field where there is nothing new to learn or nothing new to excel. Well, we definitely don't have that problem in our industry. That to me is the most exciting part of what we do. Well, what is automation in software development? I think we need to step back a little bit about what we do. For that, I'll tell you a story about something I did about 30 years ago. And it's exciting because back in 1993 was my first trip to the Grand Canyon. And I've never been there before. I've heard about it, read about it. And here I was going to Grand Canyon. And I was absolutely excited. Got into a car, started driving. And about 2 hours into my drive, Grand Canyon is not a mountain as we know. It's a hole on the ground. So you don't see it from a distance. And as I was driving by 2 hours into it, I stopped the car on the side of the road and asked the question, am I heading in the right direction? Am I lost? And I had two options. I could continue to drive, keep going, and be lost if I was, or turn around and start driving towards civilization until I meet somebody and I can ask them, hey, how do I go to Grand Canyon? And maybe they will say, well, you go exactly the direction you came from, or maybe redirect me. And you may say, oh, Venkat, didn't you really have a map with you so that you could know the direction? Oh, certainly I had a map with me. And for little younger kids these days, and even young developers these days, this is a little hard to relate to because we used to have paper maps back in time. And I take this huge paper map, I put it on the hood, and I'm looking through it. And you say, did you have a map? I certainly did. But that map really did not have one thing, just one thing, which is the blue dot. And today, you start driving and you have that map, not on a paper, but electronically. But what's really useful today, again, is not the map itself, but that blue dot. So the question you want to ask is, where are you? And the second is, which direction do you need to go? And how far do you need to go? And so essentially, we humans thrive when we have that feedback loop. So I want to step back and ask the question, what is agile development? And my definition of agile development is it is feedback driven development. So essentially, the whole point about agile development to me crystallizes to that little phrase. It's a feedback driven development. If you remove the feedback, we are not effective in a lot of things we do, whether it's trying to go to a location, or whether it's driving, or whether it is creating software, or even cooking, because we are constantly using these feedback loops. When it comes to software projects, there are two different feedback loops that are very essential. The first feedback loop is, am I creating something relevant, or am I just writing code? In fact, I often say that I genuinely feel that in the Agile Manifesto, they truly forgot to include a word. They said we should create working software, but I think what they really meant was we should create working relevant software. Because if you're not creating something relevant, our efforts don't matter. So essentially, that feedback loop is, am I creating something relevant, useful for the customers, for the users? This is where our feedback loop that comes with interaction with the business units, business analysts, our QA, and they constantly are telling us, well, change these things and improve on these things, and we want to really implement certain features in a certain way. So that's one feedback loop. The second feedback loop is, this code worked yesterday, does it still work today? Well, it turns out software is a nonlinear system. Imagine you have a building and you put a book on the bookshelf in one side of the building and something falls apart on the other side. That would be weird. You don't want things to behave that way. But that's a reality in software development. You may have a programmer joke about it years later saying, I modified this data structure over here, and 2 weeks later we saw that part is failing. We were trying to hunt through it. We didn't even know what the reason was. And eventually, after weeks of effort, we found the problem. It was a code I wrote, they say, and laugh. Well, that's funny months and years later, but not at that moment. We are not effective in delivering product. It's not cost effective. It's frustrating. It keeps us away from delivering the value. So the question really at this point is, how do I know that the code change I made is not really affecting other pieces of code? That's a feedback loop. So in agile development, we want two feedback loops at the same time. The loop of relevance, as I like to call it, that what we are developing is relevant to the users, and the loop of regression. Is it really continuing to work as we go on? And if you remove that feedback loop, that's like saying, I'm going to blindfold you and you need to walk through the room, or give you a map with no blue dot and ask you to go to the Grand Canyon. Yes, eventually I can stumble my way through the destination, but I'm not being effective. So in terms of automation, it is realizing the benefit of it. Often people ask the question, what's the cost of doing it? But I'm really concerned about the cost of not doing it. And a lot of times we tend to really focus on the effort and the time it takes to do it in the short term. But when you look at the product life cycle and the amount of time we spend in fixing bugs, but more so in identifying the bugs to know even where the problems are, and where does that time and money come from? And instead, if we take that time and money and invest it proactively in building automation to the right degree, to the right level, then we enjoy the feedback loops and we reduce the cost. So automation in software development to me is really two things to consider. One is it's the feedback loop that we benefit from. And in all honesty, it really is an economic concern. You really need to ask the question, how do I become productive in developing software? And it's kind of like saying, I want to save money, so I'm not going to buy insurance, which is really a sad reasoning. If I really want to save money, I need to have a proper insurance, because if the building burns down, I won't be able to recover if I don't have the insurance. So that's a way to think about it. So feedback loops is critical, and automation is one of those feedback loops that has an economic impact on our development. And I think it's important for teams to realize when they get into agile development is yes, we can focus on the process, we can focus on how the team can work together. Those are really important, but that shouldn't be done that should be done in addition to the technical practices and automation, not instead of. So it's one of the most critical aspects of what we do in software is to really do automated testing, but other automations as well for us to be able to be effective in what we do. So the question is, do I want to teach a group of people who are beginners and have a lot to learn, or would I rather be teaching a group of people who know stuff, but maybe need to learn a whole lot of new things? I would say what I love is learning with the people I teach. And I often jokingly say I'm the first student in the classes that I'm in. And from the learning aspect, I think we get to learn from both groups of people. And oftentimes, you don't even have a choice. I just was teaching a group of people last week, and among the 20 people I was teaching, there were a few people who had about 2 years of industry experience or even less. I had a few people in the class who had literally 35 to 40 years of experience, who are in the tail end of their career, and everybody in between. And what's absolutely fascinating here is you say something, and the younger developer may ask you the question, why do you do that? And now you're trying to really find a good reason, and it serves to validate your reason or even to convince you to rethink about your reasoning in a different context. The experienced developer is questioning you as well, saying, but this is the way we have been doing things. Why should we do things differently? And you want to be able to convince the person who has the experience, has the reasoning to do things in a certain way, to really consider maybe an alternative to get better results, maybe for a changing environment. And at the end of the day, you end up actually learning a lot more about empathy. You learn about pragmatism. You learn about realistic situations. And you learn about really offering solutions in a way different groups of people can embrace the change. The challenge in what we do oftentimes is this. You propose a change. Unfortunately, a lot of times we keep our eyes on the goal we want to achieve. But the challenge is not the goal we want to achieve. The challenge oftentimes is where we are currently and where do we want to go from to the destination. So the same exact solution may be a walk in the park for a group of people, whereas it could be enormously challenging for a different group of people because their environment is very different. They may have to put a lot more effort to break out of their current situation in order for them to be able to transition. So when we deal with one group or the other, we can get pretty dogmatic. We can get pretty descriptive and prescriptive and say, this is what you will do, and here is how you will do. And then a group of people who they work with are sitting and scratching their head saying, but that's not going to work for us. So imagine you teach one group and you're excited about it, but the reality is that group doesn't work in isolation. They have to go work with other people. And now you're addressing the needs of one group, but naively so without considering the holistic context in which they work. So I would say the process really is to help the teams to get better. And we are going to have people of mixed capabilities in the teams. And if we can learn with them and empathize about their situation, be realistic and pragmatic about our solutions, I think we can deliver better results. And after all, this whole process and everything we do is really to get results to where we want to be. And so if you can ask the question, how can we get the results? I think it's important to bring those teams together and learn with them. And so I like to teach groups that are mixed in experience and expertise. And the question is, how can you convince the maybe an unconvincible? And how can you at the same time convince somebody who is eager to and thirsty to really absorb all of that and then bring them together to move towards getting the results? That's definitely exciting to have that opportunity. And thankfully, that's a reality as well. So, Conway talked about this decades ago, what we know as Conway's Law, where he said that the communication structure in the organization is influencing the structure of the applications we create. I have a very firm, conviction, if you will, is the key is collaboration. The more we separate people and make it harder for them to communicate, the more difficult it is for us to develop proper software. I worked in many different teams over the past few decades. I worked in teams where there are sub teams that work in silos. They all kind of hide behind their own desk, develop software. They may communicate within a small group of people, but have a barrier to communicate across. I've seen teams where they separate programmers from QA, not just by rooms or buildings, even by continents. And it's absolutely mind-boggling to notice how they actually make it harder for these people to communicate across each other, and it's largely ineffective. The teams I have worked in projects which I consider to be successful are the teams where we had people within reach of each other. Literally, a programmer can drag his or her chair and sit next to a tester and talk about writing automated tests for a particular feature. And the tester, he or she, can literally drag the chair, sit next to a business analyst and a programmer, and iron out the details of what they are focusing on in testing. And that ability to reach out and communicate and even collaborate is incredibly useful. So, how should a team be organized? A team should be organized around effective communication. A team should be organized around effectively collaborating to get the work done. I'm a huge fan of pair programming and mob programming. When you want to really get a better insight, bring the people together, look into the issues, dive into the details, discuss about the nuances of what we do, and then get that working and not take pride in saying, I solved this problem, but take the pride in saying, we developed this product successfully. Software is a collective gaming, as they say. So it's kind of like a team sport. There's no fun in being the best player of a team that never wins. And I would rather be an average player of a very highly successful team rather than being the rock star of a team that never gets really to deliver the software or be successful. So to me, it's the collaboration. And oftentimes I say, for a team to be successful, what we don't need is agreement. I mean, two people who are married know this. They cannot agree with everything they do together. How can you bring a team of people and say, you got to agree? But what is really important is that there is alignment. And that alignment is what really takes us towards success. We have different opinions, we have different ideas, we have different thoughts, we have opinions on what is the right way or even a better way to do things. And bring those together, and we gain from this collective wisdom. Then you say, all right, we considered these different options, but for this particular situation, this is what we are going to do. And now the team is aligned towards moving in that direction. And if we don't communicate effectively, that alignment is lacking. And if that alignment is lacking, this is, to use a silly analogy, it's like you have a group of friends and you decide to go to dinner on a Saturday evening, and you all say, let's go to dinner, and everyone ends up in a different place to eat. That's not going to be fun. We don't have our collective team together in a place where we want to meet. And sure, in the team, you're going to have different people interested in different meals they want to have or locations where they want to go. But what do? We discuss about it, but then we have an alignment and we decide on the place to go. There are compromises one week versus another. There are convenience and other things, but we have met with a group of friends in a destination. Well, that is developing software. We're going to have different ideas and views and techniques, but that alignment has to come through early on. But the alignment comes from communication. Communication comes from collaboration, and collaboration comes from having the teams that are given that opportunity to dismantle all these barriers that prevent us from communication and be able to come together to work together. The best class I've ever taught, honestly, is not the one I would know when I teach or when I finish teaching. When I'm teaching a group of teams, I can get a feeling saying, "Gosh, these people are great. They are interactive. They are communicative. They listen. They participate. They are doing labs. Those are great." And having teams that are indifferent or not participating is rather frustrating. But in all honesty, as much as anybody would love to have a team that's interacting and communicating, the best team, I would say, is the one that can show the results of the learning. And I'll give you an example of this. I had a team out in the UK call me and said, "We want you to come and do a TDD training." And I was talking to their manager and I said, "Why do you want to do TDD training?" "Well, we want to improve what we do." And I said, "What's the cost you are expending in the bugs that you have and the poor quality you have and lack of the feedback loops?" And then he said, "Well, for every year, we spend $1 million." And I said, "If you're spending $1 million, my recommendation is don't change a thing." And he said, "Really? Why would I not want to change things when you're losing $1 million?" And I said, "With respect, if I'm walking on the road and if a $10 bill flies away from my hand, with all respect, I'm not going to run behind the $10 because to me, the $10 is a insignificant amount compared to the wealth I have. For your company, my $10 is $1 million. I know you're a multi-billion-dollar company. Don't bother doing it." And then he said, "Aha, that's a good reasoning, but let me tell you why we really want to do automated testing," and gave me the real reasoning, which was beyond just the financial reasons. It was reputation, reliability, ability to continue to get contracts from their customers because they've lost their trust and capability because of all the issues they've had. And I said to him, "I would rather not come and do training because I can come and do a dog and pony show and walk away. But instead, if you give me 2 weeks, I will sit shoulder to shoulder and I will do pair programming to write automated tests with your team. So yes, I'm teaching them, but not a traditional, let me stand up here and talk about this using slides, but sitting down and doing programming with your team shoulder to shoulder." He said, "That's not what we called you for, but let me think about it and I'll get back to you." And a month went by and he called me and said, "All right, we talked about it in my teams. We decided to give this a shot. So why don't you come over? No official training, but do pairing so you can teach us how to do automated testing on the software projects." So I went there and I spent 2 weeks literally rotating and pairing with developers and doing automated testing on the project. And how did that go? Well, from the excitement point of view, I would say that was great. They were interactive, obviously. They were challenging me, constantly questioning. We took really hard problems and were able to really redesign and write the test for it. But was it a success or what is a failure? Was it a failure? Or not even a failure, but did it give me the results? So is it a best class? Is it a best training that I did? And the answer to that, I can't know right away. But the aha moment for me was 6 months later, I got an email from the manager saying, "Hey, we just came to know that you are in the UK for speaking in a conference. Would you come and spend half a day with the team? They're super excited to have an opportunity to see you again." So I'm like, absolutely, I'll be delighted to as I go over there. And when I walk in, they said, let's show you the automated test we have done on this product for the next release. And honestly, I was blown away. I'm looking at the automation test they have written, and the team had taken the time in that 6 months period to apply and go further into automated testing. And I would say that's an example of the best training I've ever done, is to see the team run with the ideas and take it up and implement it. The most ineffective, or the ones I'm not too thrilled about, are the teams that may show excitement and they may say, "Oh, this is great. I've got all these questions. They can keep me engaged." And the minute I walk out of the building, they're like, "Well, life as it was before, that's all great idea, but not for us. Let's go continue to do what we do." I would say that's the worst course I would have offered. So to me, the best course is not measured by the interaction or the time, even though those are still useful, but the impact it has on the team. Part of it is me because I need to be able to show them the path, but part of it also is the team itself, where they are genuinely interested in taking these ideas and applying it, and cross the barriers they may come across, and then start really changing the ways they do and improving it. And I really wish and I hope more teams can show that success by way of doing and celebrating the effect of the change, rather than saying we learned all these ideas but we're not going to do anything. So to me, that's the way I would measure my success, and I'm hoping that I can have more of those successes I mentioned. My recommendation to developing software would be to be absolutely shameless. This is one of the recommendations I give both for junior developers and senior experienced developers. We work in a field where it's a process of learning every single day. The ideas we know are going to lead us forward, but the ideas that we get to learn are the ones that are going to change the way we move in the future. So to be absolutely shameless, and if you ask me, one tipping point for me is when I started writing my books, it is to go to a set of people and ask them to review the book. And it's a very humbling experience when they come back and point out so many things in every single chapter that needs to be modified or improved or rewritten. And the amazing aspect of that is you come here with things you know, but you get to move forward with the things you can learn from others and learn with others. But that humbling experience really comes from being willing to be shameless. If we are trying to be protective of what we know, it actually holds us back from becoming the better ourselves tomorrow. So be shameless to ask for that feedback and say, I worked with some amazing people who I respect a lot, but what really increased my respect for them is they would come down to the team and say, I implemented this, and I want you to review this and tell me what I can improve on this one. And when I hear that, I say, I consider this person to be an expert. Now I know how this person became an expert. By being willing to really listen to other people's ideas and to come down and say, I implemented this, I'm going to hold the fort and defend it, is not a good solution to move forward, but to say, I implemented this, but I want you to tell me how I can improve it. And what's really exciting about this is it's a situation where you only come out winning. Because when you go to somebody and ask them to review and ask for feedback, they say what you've done is great. That's a fantastic validation to your ideas. Or they say, here are the things you can change and improve. That gives an opportunity for you to learn a few things to do better in the future. So no matter how you look at it, you either come back with validation or come back with improvements, and that only moves you forward. And so being shameless is one of the lessons I learned, and I try to apply it. And we are all humans. We are great in many ways, and we have our own flaws in many ways as well. But to really rethink about it every day, take a deep breath and say, how can I really use the situation to improve myself and improve my team? And to me, I would say that comes down fundamentally to be absolutely shameless. That's all I would end with is be shameless.